Trade reports are escalating right now for the Sacramento Kings, as the Kings are once again linked to Kyle Kuzma, and after a winless preseason and a loss on opening night, some fans are calling for moves to be made by Monte McNair. So we'll break down what these reports are saying, who's linked in these trade packages, and how the Kings team would look with this newly shaped roster if these moves do end up going down. Because I've been pretty outspoken about how optimistic and bullish I am on this Kings team, and obviously, there are some moves that can be made to improve the roster. Players are playing a bit out of position, definitely different holes in this team, but regardless, moves being made or not, the Kings team is very, very loaded with talent right now. So the more we can improve this roster entering and as the course of this season, the better chances this team has to win now. And that's the position the Kings should really be in here at this point. So lots of stuff to break down. Before we dive into any of that, folks, again, over 84% of our viewers aren't subscribed to the channel, but we hit our goal though. We hit our goal of 500 subscribers. I appreciate everyone that's hitting that subscribe button, tuning into the channel, and let's keep pushing. Let's aim for 1,000. Let's keep driving those numbers up. I appreciate everyone tuning into the vids, but we got some stuff. We got some Kings news to talk about, as once again, the Kings are being linked in different packages. And as I said at the drop, I don't think this Kings team is in a position to need to blow things up or really just make absolute destructive of the roster because of an ugly preseason and a really good loss out there at the start against a really strong Minnesota Timberwolves team. I don't think this team is in dire need of crazy shakeups, despite the fact there are certainly some holes out there on the Kings team. And then this is basically where these rumors are percolating, where these things are really starting to pick up. As essentially news came out here in a report from Nathan Holloway that with the Kings already building a new big three, adding Kyle Kuzma would give them a big four. The 29-year-old has turned himself into an elite scorer, but has also been a lackluster defender. The good thing about Sacramento is they've had a top 10 defense last season, which would take the pressure off Kuzma defensively. If the Kings were to make a trade, they would greatly improve their chance of winning their first championship since the 1950-51 season, and when they're still the Rochester Royals. So again, linking Kyle Kuzma out here in a trade package. If you're not familiar, the Washington Wizards are an absolutely desperate team right now. Just the roster makes not a ton of sense, and Kyle Kuzma is one of their biggest trade assets. So, and they just drafted power forward. So again, an Alex Star. So Kyle Kuzma doesn't really have that fit there. And frankly, for all the memes that come with Kyle Kuzma, and we've seen out there on Twitter, him airballing shots, he is still a very, very elite basketball player, right? 22 points per game, 6.6 rebounds, 4.2 assists last season, 34% from the three-point line, but 41% on corner threes. He's a guy that is a natural power forward and can come out there and just be a really nice floor spacer and add some forward depth to the Sacramento Kings roster. Now, again, defense is one of the big priorities if moves are to be made for this Kings team. So Kyle Kuzma isn't going to be one of those guys that's going to be completely elite out there on the defensive end. No one's accusing him of being an outstanding defender, but with the LA Lakers, with the Wizards, things have been a different story. But with the LA Lakers, he did show some promise out there on that end of the floor. And obviously, the Lakers were the team that won the championship. We're a competitive roster there at that point. So I'm not too worried about him coming into Sacramento, especially with the systems that Mike Brown does have in place, to be a decent sort of effective defender out there on the roster. But really the positives you'd see with Kyle Kuzma out there on the defensive end is a natural power forward. He would move everyone back into a position, as we could see De'Aaron Fox playing the 1, DeMar DeRozan playing the 2, which he did for the first 10 years of his career. We'd see Keegan Murray playing the 3, his natural position. Kyle Kuzma playing the 4, and then Domantas Sabonis obviously playing the 5. The starting lineup for the Sacramento Kings would just make a lot more sense with Kyle Kuzma out there in the lineup versus a Kevin Huerter, versus one of these different players, and it would just be more well-balanced. Obviously, the front court is the big question mark about Sacramento right now, entering the start of the season, about who's there, because obviously the team is loaded out there in terms of wing depth. So, just rebalancing, reconstructing the roster to make a little bit more sense would be something that I'd be interested in, especially where you wouldn't be losing a ton of three-point shooting. Obviously, again, we can take a look at his stats again, right? The 34% from the three-point line is something you might be a little bit concerned about, but if you see the shots that Kyle Kuzma's taken, these are some high level of difficulty shots because he's asked to be the 1A option out there for the Washington Wizards. And when he gets those spot-up shots, when he's able to sort of plant himself in the corner, he is an elite knockdown shooter. So, again, Kyle Kuzma being on a winning team, being on a team that's contending, that's trying to play defense, that's trying to win games, would have his level of play elevated. And it would rebalance the Kings roster and make a ton of sense. So If this trade were to go down, how would things look in terms of a package? Well, the asking price for Kyle Kuzma right now, given the recent trades of Mikal Bridges and DeJounte Murray, it would likely take multiple first-round picks for the Wizards to consider trading Kuzma, which could be a very high asking price for Sacramento here right now. But here's the take of it, right? Because again, Kyle Kuzma might not be crazy game-changing, might not be, one option that a bunch of first round picks would command out there on the open market. But I don't think the Kings go over 3 first round picks for Kyle Kuzma. But we know this Kings team is going to be good for upcoming seasons. So you trade a pick and maybe a swap out there for Kyle Kuzma. You are betting on this team right now. You are putting your money where your mouth is with this current Kings roster. And frankly, he's on a very, very reasonable contract. 22 million, 21 million, and 19 million by 2026-2027 season. So the contract actually gets better as it goes along. And frankly, you can maybe get some assets. I don't think they're getting some young assets from the Wizards. Maybe Jonas Valanciunas out there in terms of a piece that makes a ton of sense. But if you send back a Kevin Huerter, that matches the salaries pretty well out there with, some additional pieces. You have to make the money work, the cap situations work in terms of making a deal. But if you could do a little Kevin Huerter for Kyle Kuzma swap, it would rebalance the roster to make a ton of sense. You're not losing a crazy amount of defense and giving up a Kevin Huerter and maybe like 1 or 2 bench pieces or something like that. Obviously, Keon Ellis will be able to step up, get more of an opportunity out there at the shooting guard position. You still have Malik Monk. And again, the Kings have a lot of just different options that they can sort of play with out there in the free agency market, out there in terms of making more moves. When you signed DeMar DeRozan, later on over the course of free agency, it was still kind of a work in progress in terms of how this roster will be looking, how he could restructure this team, but you improved the talent level, and making a move for Kyle Kuzma would do similar thing as that, right? It would rebalance the roster, and it would improve the talent level on this team. And obviously, Sacramento has long been linked to Kyle Kuzma out there in trade packages, going back years here now at this point, and now it's if they were interested in him a couple years ago, right? The roster as constructed right now, as currently put in position, makes perfect sense. It's perfect timing for one of these moves to go down. Again, giving up too many draft picks is not the recipe for success long-term, development for your team, but you also in the future have like a Devin Carter that are going to be into the mix. We're not sure if he's going to play this season, but he's almost going to be your first round pick for next year. So giving up one to the Washington Wizards in a season where we expect Sacramento to be very, very good, I don't think is a massive risk at all, especially where Kyle Kuzma's contract is extremely reasonable and is going to be something that things do get messy, do become a blow-up situation. It's going to be tradable in years to come anyways. So, again, I'm pretty optimistic. This is a rumor that I don't absolutely hate for Sacramento. Usually the trade rumors regarding Sacramento, I know Bill Simmons said, hey, maybe the Kings are going to blow up and trade De'Aaron Fox. I don't know. I'm not buying a ton of that. But let me know what you guys think in the comment section down below about this move, about this trade for Sacramento. Guys, the best thing is first, subscribe to the channel if you guys haven't already. Anyways, I'm signing out. Cheers.